All right, we're going to do a quick video here. Recently, I've been building some traditional arrows for traditional bows, old school arrows. You seen the video I put out a while ago where I had, I'd done a quick edit of different procedures I had where I was refurbishing a set of arrows that were belonging to my wife that were quite old. And they were beat. The feathers were pretty beat on them. The nocks were worn out on them, and I redone some of them so she could shoot her little recurve bow. But what I'm going to do today is show you how to crest the arrows. So you can see the lines I put on the arrow here. This is what would be called cresting. So there's some tools that you need to do it. You don't need the tools to do it, but it makes it a lot easier and a lot quicker. You can see here, this is one that I done. I have like traditional barred type shield feathers on it. Got the red knock on it. So the shaft ordinarily would come empty. This is a Port Arthur cedar arrow. It's a wooden arrow. You can see it's got a regular metal point on it. This is not a hunting arrow or anything like that. But guys, they customize their own arrows so they can identify them. So they'll crest them. Now this is just a base coat. You can see I put just using a 3-line, pretty simple. It's a base coat white, and I'll show you another arrow here. This one I did not build. This is a bought arrow. I didn't build this arrow, but you can see the cresting here on it where they have the. Let me give you a close-up on it. It's almost like pinstriping on a car. So it's very individual. This one is a hunting arrow. Look at that javelin point. Oh boy. That's 150 grains of menace right there. 3-blader. But that's the cresting. You can see that the arrow is color matched. It's got the white knock, the white cresting, and then it's got the red. There's no red in the cresting on this one, it's just black. But you can have arrows. You can also use it to ID arrows for different bows. If you're using 2 different weight bows and you have the same fletching and the same like equipment on each arrow, you can identify the arrow by the cresting. Sometimes too, I've seen guys where they'll have one line for arrow number 1. If they number their arrows and they're shooting their arrows and tuning them, they'll have 1 band on 1, 2 bands on 2, and so on and so forth, so that they can identify them numerically without writing something on the arrow shaft. But there's lots of different things you can do it with the arrows. Like here are some of my crossbow bolts that I'm redoing. So you can see here I put some cresting on here. This is just a transfer, that's all it is. So I cut it. You can wrap it this way too if you want it longer. I just need a short piece. It makes it easier to see the arrow. Sometimes these two, they can be reflective, so you hit it with a flashlight or you hit it with a light when it's dark if you don't have an illuminated knock. This was the old way of seeing your arrow without the luminox. But yeah, it would be reflective, so you could see it reflecting if it was in grass or tall grass or weeds or whatever. But yeah, there's lots of different things you can do. But I'll show you the setup here I have, and I'm going to show you how I have it marked and how to set it up. Basically, there's a little machine that's got a little motor in it, so the arrow sits in the machine and then it rotates the arrow almost like a lathe. That's what it kind of is. It just uses a little rubber jaw that holds the arrow. It's not going to clamp on it or anything like that. And then there's a tray that holds the backside of the arrow. So let me set the camera up and I'll show you how that's set up. Okay, so here you can see the setup I have. Here's the little machine. It's made by Boning, which that company makes pretty much anything you'd want for arrows. It's got a little tray here, so the arrow slides in the tray. And then what I've done is I have it mounted on the bench. I use the C-clamp to hold it down, so I'm putting the arrow in the same position every time. And then what I did was I put a piece of masking tape down, and then I measured how far the arrow fits in the machine. And then I marked where the end of the fletching is here for my first mark. It's going to be hard for you to see the marks in the tape. I just use a pencil to mark it down. So then what I did was I equally spaced my bands. So here's my first band, my second band, and my third band. So that's going to give me that finish that I want. I'm pretty much using just regular paint. It's craft paint from Walmart. This was like 58 cents. Pretty cheap. Now, I did get some paint. I have paint here. This is luminescent paint. So this paint actually glows in the dark. This paint is UV reflective. So if you're using a blood tracker light or a UV light, you know, trying to follow a blood trail in the dark, and you have this painted on the arrow, it'll actually reflect on the arrow. You know, you'll be able to see the arrow, you'll reflect it. So hopefully you get a pass through. That's what you want, which is quite tough with a traditional bow. They do shoot heavy weights. That's why the guys shoot, you know, pretty heavy weights, and they'll shoot pretty heavy arrows, especially, you know, heavy broadheads, like the old Bear razor head there. Look at that. Look at that beauty. This is an original Bear razor head. Now I have a modern Bear razor head here. If I'm careful, you can actually see that there's the Bear logo on it right there. This is a single bevel head, and it's got weight inserts on it, so you can change the insert on the inside of it like this. Original razor head. So just different inserts. The head on its own, just the broadhead, like this, you can use as a glue on. So this is 150 grains. Then with this, it's 175 grains. With this, it's 200 grains, and with this, it's 250 grains. Pretty clever setup. But anyway, let's get back to cresting the arrow here. So what I'm going to use is just a little bit of white paint. Hit it on the arrow. Let's turn the little motor on. And then you can see the arrow spinning there, right? So now what I'm going to do is use the bench to steady my hand. And I'm going to go to my first mark. Paint. Go to my second mark. And paint. I'm only using the white as a base coat, because those colored paints that I showed you, they won't show up bright on the wood. Third rank. I'm going to go over it again, give it another coat. I'm going to make it as even as possible. There you see it getting whiter. Just like that. That's how you do it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the arrow out and I'm going to let it dry. And then what I'll do is I'll follow up with the color. I'm going to use the pink on this one. The UV glow, I want to see how it works. So now I have my stripes on there. And I'll let that dry. It's going to dry under this light. This light is pretty warm actually. So if I leave it under the light long enough, it's going to dry. But as you can see, it's not that difficult. Now if I wanted to, I could, you know, outline that like this arrow here, the way it uses a solid color and it uses like a little stripe. So we'd use a thinner brush. The brush I'm using is pretty flat because I'm doing a wider stripe. But if I turn the brush on its edge like that, then it's much narrower. So I can do a much thinner line if I want to touch the end of it. Like on these ones here, where you can see where I done the orange stripe, and then I have a little black line in there, and then I done the same on the top. These are more for hunting. They're very bright. The white end. So what I did was I done two sets, then I flip-flopped the colors on them. The other set I have for these are 2 orange veins and 1 white vein, and then it's got orange paint on the shaft. These have the white paint, then 2 white veins, and then 1 orange vein. But this is easier for me to see, you know, the flight of the arrow. That's why they're that color. And you can see on these ones then too, I have, oh boy, that's another 150 grains worth of trouble there. These are practice broadheads, but that's how they would mount. They're just glued to the shaft. These are again are wooden arrow shafts. You can see them all in there in the quiver. So yeah, this is, you know, this is the type of finish you want to get. They're nice and bright. The end of the arrow is nice and bright. It makes it very easy for you to watch the flight of the arrow. You don't necessarily need that for target arrows. For a hunting arrow, that's a big advantage. You can see where the arrow is going. Like I said, that's what they used to do before the days of illuminated nocks. You see a lot of guys that shoot traditional arrows. They're very brightly colored. The ends of them are very brightly colored for that reason. But I could do any sort of, you know, design on this that I want. Just, of course, you want to make sure that the shaft is clean and that there's no oil or, you know, don't want fingerprints and stuff on it. These shafts are stained. You can see the wood stain on it. These ones, of course, they are a little lighter, different shade. And then these are not this is you can see how much darker it is than that. So it's pretty easy, and this setup makes it pretty easy. You can hand paint them. It's a little more tedious to do that. This makes it quite quick, and it's you know, pretty efficient if you're doing a lot of arrows. But you don't need the fancy machine to do it. You can paint them by hand if you're you know, patient. You can mark your lines on the arrow and paint them that way. It just takes a little longer. Like I said, it's like you know, guys that hand pinstripe cars. There's a little bit of skill involved in it. It's pretty easy here. You use the bench to like guide your hand, so it's nice and steady. Gives you a pretty, you know, pretty clean lines and stuff. So now all I have to do is do the rest of the arrows. So as you can see, that it's not that difficult to do. It's not reserved just for wooden arrows. You can do aluminum arrows like that. You can do carbon arrows. Doesn't matter, any arrow shaft at all. But it looks pretty nice, and it gives them a little bit of a custom look to it. I used to build a lot of even my target arrows. I would just buy bare carbon shafts or bare aluminum shafts, and then I would cut them and you know, taper the ends, do all the inserts, you know, everything. I'd build my own arrows completely from scratch. The only thing you couldn't build, of course, is the shaft itself. You buy that, and then you can buy the components to it. I just recently got, actually when I was at the sports show in Harrisburg this last weekend, I got a catalog from Lancaster Archery Supply, which is a huge archery store that's not too far from where I live. It's about an hour's drive, but the amount of nocks you can buy, the amount of different fletchings you can buy, it's like unbelievable. It's mind-boggling. That, you know, the choice you have for your arrows. Of course, you would use different fletches and for different purposes. Like you can see on the crossbow bolt here, it's got a little small, like a 2-inch vein. It's not real high, it's not real big. Then this one is a little bit bigger. This is a 4-inch vein, a little bit bigger, a little bit more steerage. Then on my other, like these arrows here, or these arrows here, these are 5-inch veins, so where these are feathers. So I like to use the feathers for the wooden arrows. You know, you stay traditional with that. The traditional bows that I shoot, I'm not shooting off a rest, I'm shooting off the shelf. So the feather's a little more forgiving for that. If it touches the bow, it's not gonna, you know, upset the arrow as much. But feathers, there's pros and cons to feathers. Feathers, people say, I don't know if there's any proof to it, but they say a feather's more forgiving to shoot. It has a little more surface area than a vein, so it tends to, well, I can ask my friend here. my feather supplier. It has a little more forgiving to shoot because it has more surface area, so it actually catches more wind, and then it steers the arrow quicker when it comes out of the bow. Of course, you need to properly tune your arrow so that it's shooting correctly, but that's done with bow tuning, proper arrow shaft, proper length, proper head weight, proper brace height, proper knocking point height. You know, there's a lot involved in that. Hopefully I'll do some videos on that as well. Really, I'm getting back into shooting recurve bows and, you know, traditional bows. I spend a long time shooting. Of course, like a lot of people at, you know, beginning archery, I didn't start with a compound. I started shooting many years ago, many years ago, more than I care to mention. But I started shooting a recurve bow. That's how I started. So I shot a regular recurve, very basic recurve bow. I shot bare bow and stuff too sometimes, but not too much. But it was a regular recurve, like a very basic target recurve bow. Then once I got more advanced, then I went to Olympic recurve bow. I shot that for competition and tournament shooting and stuff. Done all the FIDA stuff, the Olympic archery, done all that, and shot many years with that. Then eventually I transitioned to a compound bow, so I shot compound for target archery, field archery, indoor archery. Done all that. Got the FIDA scores for that. Then after I moved to the United States, then I didn't do too much target shooting. I pretty much done 3D and then hunting, of course, which is what I predominantly do now. I don't target shoot too much anymore, just for practice. But I'd like to get back into shooting. I'm going back to shooting a bare bow. Actually, I have one here. I'll show you. So this is what would be considered a bare bow, no sight. You just shoot it instinctively. You can string walk with it. You can do a number of different things with it and shoot it in different ways. But I'm gonna practice with it instinctively, no sight. I'm not gonna gap shoot or like string walk with it, where you would use the arrow as a sighting aid. I want to do it as old school as possible, I guess. I'd like to be able to learn to shoot instinctively, where it's like throwing a ball or throwing a dart, that you would look at where you want the ball to go, or in my instance, where you would want the arrow to go. And then when you train yourself enough, your arm is going to go exactly where, it's like pointing your finger at something. I want to hit that. So the arrow is riding right on the shelf. No rest, it's riding right there over your hand. So when you shoot instinctively, you basically look at what you want to hit, draw back, and boop, let it rip, and the arrow is going to go exactly where you're looking. And it looks very easy when a very skilled person is doing it. They make it look really easy, and it's not that easy. But that's what I like to do. So that's something I'm working on for this year. But let's get back to cresting the rest of these arrows, and I hope that was a little tutorial, showed you that it's not that hard to do if you want to do it. But all right, we'll see you on the next one. I'll show you some finished product. Okay, so here we are. There's our finished product. You can see I just used the paint to stripe them. I was just using the paint in a little paper tray. So now, moment of truth. The white is going to reflect in this too, because the veins are white. But let's turn out the light, and I'm going to hit them with my blood tracker light. Oh, it's dark. Now let's see. Whoa! Yeah, see, it is reflective. Look, it glows right up, even if I shine on the paint. Look at that. This is a pretty strong UV light. It's a Primos blood tracker, so it's got quite a strong beam on it. Let's turn the light back on. Here we go. There's the light, look. So I won't point it at the camera because it is quite bright, but that's a UV blood tracker. You can see it reflected in it. Pretty cool. All right, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys on the next one.